welcome to the Overflow Podcast. This is your boy Joaquin, and we're waiting for Jay to show up. But this week, man, we're going to just talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And we've got a little freestyle topic that we're going to hit you up with about church and youth groups. So it should be interesting. It should be maybe a little controversial.
Maybe a lot controversial.
Not because we're trying to be controversial, but because my ideas
are controversial.
But because my ideas are controversial. I mean, that's all there is to it, right? So as always, this is Joaquin.
I'm Jay.
And once again, thank you for joining us today. We had a special guest, but that fool fell asleep. How is it that the youngest guy in the room is knocked out like he had a hard day?
Yeah, if we were at the house, he would still be up.
It's kind of funny, and that's our special guest that's not going to speak with us tonight is Jay's son, Junior,
the famous Junie, who's mentioned here a lot,
aka Mumbles, because he mumbles when he talks. He talks like he's got a mouthful of marbles. So man, Jay, what's up, man? How's your week? How's your week been? How's your week been, dog?
It's been hell.
Uh-oh.
Nah, it's hell week at work because, next week is Sangivi.
Ooh.
So
Thanksgiving.
I am stuck with, well, I'm not stuck, but, I have to deal with early deadlines for 6 newspapers across the country.
Across the U.S.
And that's when having a design team that you're over in another country works against you.
Right.
kind of, sort of. They're fast, but still, it's not like, hey, like I can run over to them and say, change this, work on this. Like,
Right.
Everything's got to be over the phone or through Skype mainly. But, hell week. But I'm okay because, my last day was last night. So,
was last night or tonight or well, yeah. I'm always so confused, right? We record this on Thursdays. You listen to it on Fridays.
I try to speak like it's Friday,
and Jay always tries to speak like it's Friday, and I'm always talking like it's Tuesday. So I really have no idea where I'm at half the time. But yeah, so we got
hell week. That's what I called it, hell week.
Oh, nice. Nah, this
But other than that, it's
other than that, it's been all right.
I mean, the baby has an ear infection, so
silly baby with their ear infections.
That's something to deal with. But yeah, man, it's been a great week. Life is good. God is good.
Life is good, according to Jay. Well, I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you, life is not good. It has been yeah, man. For me, kind of the same thing. Work for me, work has been work. Hasn't been too bad. We had the board of directors in today, which is cool because they tend to come in like the previous day, but they always tend to come in later in the day when I'm not there, so I don't have to worry about keeping up with them. And then in the morning, the following morning, they come to the job site like in the morning. That's the only time we deal with them because then they leave later that evening. So
cool.
I'm not there. So I was like, yeah, dog. I did go to the dentist today, and I don't know what it is. Every time I go to the dentist, like I feel like they punched me in the jaw a couple of times. Like there's all that scraping and polishing, and so my jaw, I feel like my jaw is sore. I'm like, oh, who punched me?
You're like Chris Tucker. Which one of y'all fools punched me?
Yeah, yeah, man. But yeah, so I was just kind of like, why does my jaw hurt? But yes, today was my last day. Also, Thursday was my last day of the week because we got some awesomeness coming up tomorrow. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow's Friday or today. Tomorrow for you guys, tomorrow is today, and for us,
today's tomorrow.
Today is tomorrow.
Now it's Friday.
Friday, baby.
Friday the 17th,
Which means I am not going to be doing Nathan today. Actually, so we got Justice League.
Yes, son.
That we're going to go see. So we got to go to the Mall of Georgia. I think Jay said he's going to be here at 12 for us to go to the 1:30 show. So hopefully ain't nobody trying to flee Atlanta. We get there quickly.
There's no ice storm.
I don't care about the ice storm. I'm worried more about Thanksgiving storm. And tonight, Thursday night, while we're doing this, The Punisher has been released. So I might get up early, start watching The Punisher.
Yeah, you'll have time since
go watch Justice League.
Since the baby's ear infection threw a monkey wrench in our plans.
Well, or I'll just do what Joaquin does, which is I do whatever Joaquin wants to do. I have a conversation with myself.
Yeah, don't stay up tonight watching Justice League because then The Punisher, because then you're gonna fall asleep in the theater watching Justice League.
First of all, that'll never happen. Second of all,
that's what I hear you snoring in the theater.
Second, well, did you fall asleep during BVS or
No.
Man of Steel the second time we saw it?
No.
I know you fell asleep to some movie we watched.
Yeah, it wasn't any of those.
I think it was. But anyway, I might just leave it early and I might just leave early. I think I got a coupon for buy one get one from Red Robin, so I might just be going. I might be leaving early to go eat some Red Robin. Red Robin, yum.
Never been there.
You never been to Red Robin?
Mm-mm.
Bro, legit.
Yeah,
they are legit. Yeah, I love burgers.
Yeah,
they're legit. So, and they have bottomless fries, which is awesome. I mean, I can't eat fries because of my diet, but they got bottomless fries.
Yeah. So check this out. Funny story. So
anyway, yeah. So we got that. So I might leave early. I might be like, "Yo, Jay, I'm already here, sucker."
Yeah. So just let me know. So Junie told a friend of his,
right,
that
he was skipping school,
that he wasn't going to be going to school tomorrow because it's a national holiday because of the Justice League movie coming out, right? That's what I told him. Yeah, I just thought it's a national holiday, right? So he said that said friend went home and told his dad, "Hey, Dad, since because the Justice League movie's coming out tomorrow, it's a national holiday. Can I not go to school and go see the movie?" And I was expecting for Judy to tell me that his father told her, "Boy, you out your mind? Get your butt to school."
Right.
But his father said, "Hey, let's talk about it when you get home." Which it's 50-50, right? 50-50 where the dad says, does what I'm doing. Yeah, let's go watch it. Or does what I said. "Boy, you out your mind? Get your butt to school."
Yeah. That's hilarious.
So
it's a religious holiday.
I guess I'll find out.
It's a religious holiday, right? Got to go see the Trinity.
It is. You got to see the Trinity.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. You're all going to see the Trinity.
Yeah. So I told somebody at work earlier in the week that I've waited my whole life for this movie. Right. And they gave me the side eye, what you talk about, Willis? And dude, it's true. It's true, right? Because when we were younger, right,
back in the day when we were shorties,
we dreamed of movies like the Transformers,
right,
and G.I. Joe and stuff like that.
Yep.
Wishing that they would make them as movies. But I am so glad that they didn't try it back then because the technology
wasn't. Well, I know G.I. Joe they could have.
Yeah, G.I. Joe they could have.
I mean, they did Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren.
They did.
I remember, and I watched it. I remember going to the movie theaters and watching it because I loved He-Man. Had a bunch of He-Man action figures, and
He-Man was dope.
My parents, He-Man. It took me. It wasn't nothing like the cartoon, but I still loved it because it was He-Man. I've never had really high standards when it comes to movies.
I watched it too.
If I enjoy it, I will like it.
I watched it again. Now as an adult, and I was like,
it doesn't hold up. Probably
they really need to reboot this movie.
Yeah, it doesn't really hold up.
Really
a lot of stuff doesn't hold up, unfortunately.
But apparently,
Goonies holds up. If you never watched Goonies, watch Goonies.
Supposedly, the guy who did G.I. Joe is trying to do a Masters of the Universe reboot. But anyway, as I was saying, right? So I mean, we did have Superman.
Yes.
Right? The campy Superman.
Yes.
Right? Which is cool for what it was.
Yeah, it was very much of its time too.
All right, it was, which was dope. But there's the technology is so much better, so advanced now.
Yes.
That it's just like it's mind-boggling a little.
Yeah, he looks like he's flying. He doesn't look like he's laying down on a board.
Right? Like what they did, like if you think of Man of Steel and you remember that the scene where he's at the North Pole and he's walking out over the ice cap, like about to like
he's learning to fly.
He's learning to fly and he's jumping. Like you see like the flow of the cape, right? They could never do something like that back in the 70s where the original Superman
or the
came
80s
out. or 90s
or the 90s or the early 2000s.
Right? So, grateful. So yeah, I've been waiting for this movie my whole life.
Yeah.
Right? Because reading the comic books my whole life, because I still read the comic books, right? For it to finally come to fruition, for us to have like Ben Affleck and the choice that Zack Snyder made by finally giving us a Batman suit that is straight out of the comic books.
Correct.
Rather than all the padding and the armor, especially the armor like in Christopher Nolan's Batman was all armor basically. Right. And our Batman, Michael Keaton, right, was
the rubber suit.
Was like all rubber and the platform boots because it was so short.
right. And the fact that when you saw him as Bruce Wayne, like he didn't have the build that he had as Batman. I mean, listen, I watched that movie a few months back. It's still a great movie.
It's still great. I saw it. I saw it not so long ago.
It's still a great movie.
He was a great Batman, but he was like an awesome Bruce Wayne.
He was I thought for me he was a little too eccentric as Bruce Wayne. I thought he was a little too eccentric. I mean, he was still great. Like I said, I'm not saying that as a. I mean, I still love the movie. I think it's still one of the great.
He was a better
adaptations.
He was
a
better Bruce Wayne than Bale was.
Yes,
for me, Bale.
Well,
was
actually, I mean, if we're gonna be honest, even Val Kilmer and George Clooney were better Bruce Waynes than Bale was. Like my buddy at work thinks Bale is the Batman, is the movie Batman.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, he's like nothing like the comics. He's like, well, but it's about the movie. He was trying to make the argument. It's about the movie.
It's about the movie.
It's like the movie based on. It's like the movie Batman. I'm like, yeah, but it's when you go see a superhero movie, you're wanting to see as close to the comic book character, especially when it comes to the suit. I mean, that's say what you will, like with the Marvel movies, the ones you like, you don't like, but they got their looks are the comic book looks.
Right.
Iron Man is the Iron Man from the comic books. The Hulk, even
the Hulk is not hard to
but there's been like 3 different styles, but they all were still very much, even Ang Lee's, which a lot of people didn't like, which is weird because it's like,
I love that one.
It's got a fresh rating on the Rotten Tomatoes. I liked it too. I love how he did the comic book panels.
The comic book piles.
I thought it was so great.
The tiles were great.
But like Thor, all those guys.
Yeah. I was trying to think of Thor. Like Thor, which you would think would be like the most difficult to translate from page to screen, but
he killed it.
They do it.
They do Vision, Black Panther. I mean, so that's what you want to see. And yeah, I mean, as good as the Nolan Batman movies were, that Batman, didn't fight like Batman should have been fighting.
Not at all.
That's really the biggest complaint. It wasn't even his size. It was just that
I didn't enjoy. I get so much heat for this, but I like the story and the development of Batman through all three movies, but I did not like Bale. I didn't like the Batman. I didn't like his Batman, and I didn't like
his Batman was fine. I
didn't like his Bruce. I hated his Bruce.
His
Wayne.
Bruce Wayne was nothing like there was nothing in his Bruce until he was told. He had to be told.
Hate it.
He had to be told how to be Bruce Wayne
as an adult already.
You know, and that was like whack.
Garbage.
But his Batman, Batman was still pretty good. He had some. I tell you what though, he did have some great scenes as Batman. You cannot take away from those. Like when he goes to get the Chinese guy in Hong Kong, that whole sequence was dope. Even
I'm not saying that it was bad.
Even in the first one, even when he drops down in the very first scene, it was great.
I'm not saying that he was bad. I'm just saying, it wasn't for me. It wasn't that great. It wasn't that good. Right, but now we've got Batfleck, who looks like he jumped out of the pages of the comic.
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have a Batfleck movie, and
according to the rumor mill, we may never
never get a Batfleck movie. Yeah, the closest we're gonna get is
his appearances in Justice League, Suicide Squad,
and BVS.
Right.
So yeah.
So and then all right. So now, Suicide Squad. So it's almost been basically confirmed that Black Adam will be the villain of Suicide Squad 2.
Well, I've seen they haven't really I haven't seen that they've basically it does look like it's going that way.
Today I read an article. I didn't send it to you guys,
but
because Joaquin and Angel and we have our little texting group where
we get really dumb.
We get so stupid.
Angel gives us like the corniest. I punished Angel. I think I gave him like 4 days,
and I think I gave him like 3. So he's got a week.
He's got a week of no jokes.
That's what we do. That's all right. To explain what that means, whenever one of us says or tries to say a joke and it comes out like bad or corny or whatever, right? Because I don't think they use the word corny anymore.
Well, it can be corny, but it's when it's like
when it's just not funny,
super corny.
When it's like super lame and it's just not funny,
super corny.
Like because it can be corny, you can still laugh because it's stupid. But when it's not even that,
when you groan, you're like, oh, that you get a day. You get a day of no joke telling.
Then either we determined by how bad the joke was.
You only get a couple hours,
right?
You
get punished of like no jokes. So it could be anything between 2 to 3 hours to 2 to 3 days.
2 to 3 days,
right? So,
and Angel earned himself like 4 days with me today,
and I think
because he kept throwing back to back.
I got 2 days this week too. I forget why, but whatever.
Yeah, I tend to throw them out. I tend to be the one that throws out the days like crazy. I'm the arbiter of what's funny.
But anyway, I forgot what I was going to say.
So
I forgot to. I didn't send,
so I mean,
that would
send
be the article. I have to send
that
the
would
article to you guys.
That would be cool. I think that would be interesting. A great way to introduce them.
I think it's excessive because like he's super powerful. Like if you in comparison to the Jokers that make up the Suicide Squad,
right? That would be interesting.
But who the hell cares, right?
It's a comic book movie. I like that's never like you have scenes where like you have scenes where even like where not superpowered beings fight superpowered. I mean, so it's like whatever. It's a comic book movie. Like it's allowed.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So that looks like it's gonna happen. Who knows? Yeah, it's just the thing is, and we'll kind of segue this way a little bit. Like it's just been one of the things, man. It's been such a rough week with news. Like not a whole lot of uplifting stuff. It just seems
so we're not
like,
going to be bringing anything.
Yeah,
we're not going to bring
seems
in
like
news
it just
to you
seems
guys
yeah. This week it's like my goodness. It just seems like everything has been, war with North Korea, sexual allegations against everybody. Soon there's gonna be no one in Hollywood left.
or now in politics.
Or in politics now. Yeah, it's like everything's coming under fire, and it's just it's a little overwhelming. You know, it's a little overwhelming sometimes, a little depressing. But now one thing that did happen last week was, last Sunday, that church, the little First Baptist Church in Sutherland, they had their first, they had their service. They had it outside under a tent. And I saw some of the clips, man. It was that preacher, man, was real encouraging, real. I
didn't see. Was it a guest preacher or
no?
Was it the pastor?
The pastor preached, man.
Wow.
And at times just crying, because he lost his daughter. Matter of fact, it was so heartbreaking too, because it was a part of one of the stories I read. It was this lady. She went to go support, and her little girl was like, am I gonna die today if we go? And the mom was like, it just broke her heart. So they were there, but she just stayed in the car hugging her little girl. It was like, no, it'll, you'll be okay. So, yeah. But the pastor, man, he was really in the midst of all that tragedy. He was like, look, man, they're with Jesus. God's got this. Like he was still preaching, look, God's in control. God's in control. And I find that to be very uplifting, because, my personality is like, that's it, I'm out. I'm like, just,
Bedside Baptist.
Yeah, it's like, why does God not like me? So those kind of things, man, it's there's those lessons there about, facing adversity and even the things, giving perspective to the things we go through. Sometimes we get caught up and we think, oh, what I'm going through is so bad. And we just need a little perspective sometimes. And no, it was pretty amazing. Pretty amazing stuff.
What else you got? Because now you made everything all somber.
Nah, man, I don't think it's somber. I think it's celebratory. The fact that they were able to meet together and just worship God and not be angry and not be,
maybe we should do
and not quit.
Do an episode of, not so much tragedies, but how people always ask, well, where's God when the bad things happen?
Right.
Do some scriptural clarification as to where he is.
He's still here, y'all. He's still here, y'all.
And why they happen.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's always, and I will use this word, it's always entertaining to me when people who don't believe all of a sudden want to call out a God that they don't believe in. Right. For like the bad stuff that happened in the world. Right. So yeah, I think, maybe we can.
Yeah, that's always the funny thing, right? It's like you don't believe, but you're so invested in me believing, and in wanting me not to do things because I believe. It's like really, dog. It's like, I think Adam Carolla.
Why did your God allow that to happen?
Adam Carolla's like,
you care. You don't believe in it.
Yeah. I listen to Adam Carolla's podcast, and he's an atheist. And he's like, today we're talking about something, goes, well, this atheist here. But, he's friends with guys that are like Orthodox Jews, and he's like, look, it's fine. Believe believe in what you want to believe in. I have no skin in the game because I don't believe in it. I'm not going to be marching. I'm not going to be going out going, oh, we need to stop these people from, because like, why do I care? That's why I don't believe, because I don't want to care. Because I don't understand atheists that meet on Sundays and have their own. That's why I'm an atheist. I don't. He goes. That's why I'm an atheist. I don't want to have to go to meetings on Sundays.
I want to stay home on Sunday and watch football games.
And I'm just like, you see. That's, if you're going to do it that way, that's the way to do it. Just be like, look, man, just do your thing. Oh, speaking of atheists in the Bible. So, the Bible Museum just opened up in Washington, D.C.
Did it?
Yes. I saw a news report on today. Here's something that's interesting. So, Hobby Lobby was one of the biggest financiers. They had over, I think they said 500 people that gave money for it to be built.
Nice.
And it's built. It's in Washington D.C. And so they're getting flack
Because it's a
so the separation of church and state people are like, oh,
who don't understand that that law at all.
Apparently don't understand that concept. They're like, oh, they're so close to the Capitol. They're in the Capitol and they're close to the government, and they're gonna try to convert all the politicians and stuff, and and they're gonna try to get rid of church and state, and they're gonna break that wall between church and state, and it's like, nah, I don't think so. But then, because no, that's not what that means. And then on the other side, you have evangelicals who are mad, or let's not say evangelicals, just say Christians, right? Because in all their different forms. Christians that are mad because they say the museum doesn't talk about Jesus enough. And there's nothing about Jesus. And, there needs to be more about Jesus. And
so what's in that museum?
It's all about like the history of the Bible, dude. It's not just, it's not a museum to go and to just be like, here's Vacation Bible School. Jesus loves you. No, it's like the majority of the artifacts in there come from the family that owns Hobby Lobby. They've got one of the largest biblical artifact collection in the world.
Dope. So what you're saying is that a trip is in order.
Yes, and so they got papyrus. They got papyrus from the Dead Sea Scrolls. They have all kinds of biblical artifacts. They have trees. They have the olive trees that you would find in Jerusalem during Jesus' time. So it's not not supposed to be it's not a museum where you're like, hey, it's not like
the Fern Bank.
Hey, no, it is like the Fern Bank. That's what it is. It's a museum, but it's a biblical history museum. But
the Fern Bank was boring.
But it's not. No, I thought the Fern Bank was fine. I liked it, but I'm a history guy. But it's not a museum where you're like, hey, I want my friend to accept Jesus, so I'm going to take him to this museum.
It's not a church.
It's not a tribulation trail kind of thing where we're going to scare you into Jesus. And apparently it's so large.
How large is it?
That if you do the audio tour, it stops you in places. Most places for no longer than 35 seconds, because there's so much stuff to see that if you linger, they said it could take you a couple of days to see the whole thing. That's how big it is. That's how much stuff they have.
Wow.
That it could take you like 2 or 3 days to walk through it. And so that if you do the audio tour, it's so quick so that you can see as much as almost you could think. I think if you do the audio tour, they do it in such a way where you can see everything in a day, but you're not lingering over anything.
Hanging, yeah.
Yeah, you're just like, hey, this is a Roman coin. Okay, now let's go. Hey, this is a vase from Jesus' time. Okay, let's go. Hey, this is what a tree when Jesus cursed the fig tree. This is what it would look like. All right, let's go.
Before curse, after curse. Let's go.
Let's go.
No, that's dope. That means the trip is in order.
Yeah, so it's very, very cool. So it's very, very exciting. So look that up. And I had a friend that went to the Ark in Kentucky. She said it was pretty cool. They even had camels. They rode the camels. Which leads to this question, which was asked by the atheist.
Ruh-roh.
At the Ark, it says the animals went 2 by 2, right? They were talking about dolphins. It's like, what about the dolphins? Did they just swim by the Ark? Or did they flop, 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 flop? And they had pools.
Of course they swam by the Ark. Don't you go on a cruise and see dolphins swimming by the cruise ship?
I'm just saying, the Bible says the animals went in 2 by 2. Did Noah have a pool for the
yes
for the dolphins?
He had a roof. He had a roof deck pool for the dolphins.
A little dolphin pool.
He had a roof deck pool.
He tied the squirrels to the dolphins, and that's how the squirrels started.
I just want to know why he saved the roaches and the spiders.
I don't think he saved them. I think they just snuck in. They were like, "This is our chance, fellas."
The roaches and the spiders.
Well, because They say that roaches will survive the nuclear holocaust.
So, so they can go to North Korea.
So they'll be everywhere, man. They'll be like, we survived, man. It's like, oh, man. All right, so that's enough silliness. So what's up with the song for this week, Jay? You picked it out.
Sorry.
Jay. Hello, Jay. You there?
Sorry, was yawning. The other bad thing that we do is get together like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, but don't start the podcast. So like 12 or 1.
It's all Jay's fault. But go ahead, because I'm here.
Well, the deal is with the song is for our faithful listeners, the whole 2 of you.
No, there's 4.
Oh, okay, 4.
Shout outs, y'all.
The whole 4 of you.
Maybe 5.
A couple months ago when we did the whole God Culture series, if you recall, we had who I call the Christian CEO.
Dre?
No, I was trying to remember if there was something more than just Christian CEOs, whatever. Anyway, whatever. Andre Mullen.
Andre.
So Dre has his company, the Anaxis Group, and within all that, he has 2 artists as clients. Like, it's funny. He has one CCM artist and one CHH artist, right? And he's working with both of them, putting out new music. So the first artist is this girl, Sheena Lee, who back in the day was very much tied up in CCH. Like, she was like that feature girl.
Right, like the hooks and stuff.
Right. And she also had a few projects that were very hip hop influenced.
Right.
Right. But she hasn't done anything in a while. So this is her first single of her new project that under the Anaxis Group.
Oh, okay.
Right. And
Excellent.
And she does more singing, right, than just like worship style or like, soul style. If you want to pick a genre, right?
R&P.
Right.
Yeah. Called it back in the day. R&P.
Than like urban music or hip hop music.
Rhythm and praise.
Right. So it's
Ain't
more
no blues because we Christians.
It's more of her, you can really hear like her voice and her talent, because she's an amazing singer.
Stick to listen to a song and not hear the voice.
And I'm sorry, and I'll be the guy to say it, but when you don't know if you're a good singer or not when all you're doing is like hip hop influenced music, right? As a singer, like Mariah Carey was amazing, right? Like her first few albums, right, where she was just like belting out all these tunes and these ballads,
right? And
then she started mixing it with some hip hop stuff, and then it's like like she died out a little.
Right.
That's
no, she didn't die out because of the hip hop stuff.
That's
She
this
died
man's
out. She
opinion.
died out because she kind of like lost her marbles there. Got a little nuts.
But anyway, coming back to it.
Holla at me, Mariah. I ain't afraid of you.
She don't remember her lyrics anyway.
That's right.
If you want evidence of that, just YouTube Mariah Carey at the New Year's Times Square New Year's celebration.
Even though she's got probably one of the best Christmas albums ever, I'll say that.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
We digress.
Anyway,
we digress.
With all that, I want to reintroduce everyone to Sheena Lee, right? With her first single, what's it called?
Fig Leaves.
Fig Leaves. Give it a listen. Check it out.
Man, woman, created God's image, love, trust, choice made forbidden, sin, shame, thoughts changed, fear, hiding, covered in fig leaves. Fig leaves. Why are you hiding from me? In the past, I tried to cover it. I'd find anything to mask my sin. Afraid of what you think. I need to be perfect. Just wanted to be accepted, but I was meant to be different. Looking for love in wrong places had me going through some changes. Fig leaves. Fig leaves. Why are you hiding from me? Yeah. Guilt, pain, lust in relationships, lies, secrets, disguised insecurity, makeup, pretend, smile on social media, regret, hiding behind these fig leaves. Fig leaves. Why are you hiding from me? Hiding from me. Should've did, yeah.
So that was Sheena Lee.
With
Fig Leaves.
Fig Leaves.
It's the single off of her upcoming EP entitled By Design.
Nicely done.
You're welcome.
And
I got this on lock.
hey, you know,
It's
if
for
you
horses.
if you liked, so dumb. If you liked what you heard, find it on Spotify, you know,
Or, yeah, I think probably
or
Apple,
Apple Music, all of that.
Google.
Stream it, enjoy it,
Pirate
send it out,
Bay. No, don't look on Pirate Bay.
and wait for the EP. And
Yeah.
pretty soon we will have Sheena Lee on the phone, and
That was, yeah.
we'll be talking to her about her new album and her new dreams and the new direction that her career's taking.
And that'll happen if I ever get my act together.
Get it together.
It's all on me. Listen, by next year, I promise that we'll be able to do the phone calls like champions. Or, until I figure out how to screw it up.
I think it would be super dope if we, in one of those, random sprinklings of artists for Legacy Nights, that we can get it down here to do like one of the worship nights.
Yeah, that's what I've said.
Are you listening, Andre?
Andre ain't listening.
Are you listening, Dre? Are you listening? We can talk about that.
We'll have Angel cut this part out and send it to him. So yes, that was great. Real quick,
the message of that song is dope.
Real quick, Legacy Nights. We are working on. Hopefully, we want to get started beginning of the year. So keep an ear out or eye out or whatever out for that.
And prayers up.
And go to We Are Legacy ATL, right? Is it on wearelegacyatl.com?
We Are Legacy ATL, yeah.
Yeah, so go there and you should be able to. I think we have a splash page up.
Yes, we do.
And also you can click on it and kind of see what our mission is and everything, so you can kind of see what we're about. So today's topic. So we just finished Fruits of the Spirit.
Yes.
So we were gonna talk about one thing, but Jay showed up inspired. Because
Some will say inspired, others will say angered.
Because he got into a Facebook back and forth because a question was asked. So Jay said, "You know what? Let's talk about this."
Let's talk about this.
And I said, "Whatever, dog." So Jay,
and which is the other reason why we had a special guest.
Well, we had a special. He's still here. He's just knocked out.
He's just not here because he's
I'm gonna have to look for my permanent marker. We can fill in his beard.
Actually, he just trimmed it.
His patchy beard. Fill it in.
Looking good. My good looking son over there. My mini me.
He's no longer your mini me. He's your same height me.
No, he's still shorter than me. He's still shorter than me. He's not. He hasn't reached it yet. But anyway, all right. So check this out. Let me open up this conversation like this, right? I think between Joaquin and I, we both have possibly like almost 40 or a little over 40 years worth of ministry.
Probably.
Right? That's a lot of years. And
that's a lot of us not knowing what the heck we're doing.
And the bulk of that is in youth ministry, right? So
working with youths.
So I opened it up that way because we're going to talk about youth ministry and where we believe or how we believe the church is failing the youths and youth ministry, right?
And it's a funny and it's a funny. I'm a Mario. No, it's I hate the fact that I have such a high pitched voice. I forgot what I was saying. Oh, so
it's a funny
because I'm a Mario.
Stop! You did the same thing twice.
That's why it's funny. So with our experiences, Jay's successes, my mostly failures, we've picked up on some things, and what's going to be interesting about this is that we're actually, and I don't know, I think what we're about to present, I think Jay, I could be wrong, but I think Jay has been the last few years where Jay has kind of shifted in what we're going to talk about and how we're going to present it, and how we think youth ministry should, the direction we think it should actually probably go. Whereas I've been a proponent of this a lot longer, because I know me and Jay have had before we had discussions where we were on the opposite ends.
I think yes, we were. And what made it what made me slide over was my last youth pastor position at the last church that I was a part of, right? So this is the deal. On Facebook, a mutual friend asked, and he does this where he asks questions and starts dialogue and discussion. And for the most part, I stay out of it, right? Because I don't want to start a fight. Because the deal is that a lot of people are very married to their opinions. Right.
And nobody ever gets no one ever really gets convinced in a Facebook argument, discussion.
And then for the most, I stay out of it also because I get frustrated with a lot of the responses.
Right.
But in this case, the question was, why are young people? Oh gosh, what is it?
I don't know. Why are young people leaving the church?
Why are young people leaving the church
or not staying?
No. Why do young people not take God seriously and leave the church by the time they're 18? Right? Something more or less like that.
Okay.
Right? Around those lines. And so I did what I hate doing and what I always tell you not to do. And
I read the comments. Difference is I don't respond. I've done it. Very rarely do I ever respond to comments.
This is the question.
I get so angry.
Why are the youth not interested in church, and by the time they're 18, they leave? The church. And
right, because that's usually the time they go to college, and then that's it.
Yeah. So, wow, 9 shares and 111 comments.
A lot of comments.
It wasn't that much when I first saw it. So I went, I ran down the rabbit hole and was reading the comments, and it sickened me to my stomach.
His stomach.
I'm not even gonna say that. Oh, and I got frustrated, or I got sad, or I got mad. It made me sick. Right. And it made me sick.
Visibly shaking. He was so angry.
It made me sick because, like I said, Joaquin and I, we've devoted the majority of our ministry to youth ministry.
Right.
Even now I still get invited to go preach at different youth things. But the majority of those comments were all because the youth are playing games with God, or the youth don't really seek God as they should, or almost everything was just bashing the youth, and it's like, dude,
all right, maybe
number one, that was you, probably a couple days ago, right? Not you as a teenager, but let's be honest, probably even as far as a couple days ago. Number two, that doesn't help.
Right.
That doesn't.
So I wouldn't necessarily call it bashing. I would say more like they're blaming, right? So because to me, I don't know. I know it's maybe I'm being pedantic. Nice word. Booyah. But I think
SAT word alert. SAT word alert.
Yeah, dog. But it's a lot of blaming, more than bashing. But to me, it's like blaming, right? It's like, it's their fault that they're no longer closer to God. It's your fault,
right?
It's like
the worst part was because the youth are entertaining the devil.
The youth are entertaining the devil. That's funny. That's a funny. I mean, I know what they're saying, but in my, crazy brain, I feel like it's like the devil's sitting in the couch and they're bringing him cookies and coffee or tea. The devil doesn't drink coffee; caffeine's too much for him.
He drinks tea.
He drinks tea.
More caffeine. They're bringing him coffee and a little tea and scones and playing the piano and singing show tunes.
But if it's the devil, would it be more like death metal, like the back?
No, because the devil's sophisticated.
Back masking. Remember back in the day,
The devil,
they're playing records backwards to the devil.
the devil is sophisticated. He's sophisticated,
They're playing them Hell's Bells and
right?
playing it backwards because
Playing in some AC/DC and Black Sabbath,
but backwards.
but backwards and orchestrated. So right, and it well anyway. In all seriousness, as serious as Joaquin and I can get, right? This is the deal. This is the deal, right? Yes, years ago, I was all for, having a separate youth service because of one main reason, right? And that main reason was everything that was going on in that thread, right? Growing up, as I've said many times during these episodes, growing up legalistic, right, in a legalistic church, right, that is what I heard about the youth and about myself within the church that I went, that I was a part of, that I grew up in, right? Oh, the young people, they don't know anything. The young people don't want to seek God. Oh, the young people are more interested in worldly things than, but I'm like, really? Because we could be out there doing all those worldly, secular things, but we're in church. Right? It's a Friday night, and we're in church
Because you're making us.
Right? We could why would we choose? Like, if we had a choice whether to go to the clubs, right?
That's the key word.
No,
Choice.
no, but
you didn't have a choice, Jay.
But listen. Right? If the choice is go to the clubs, go have sex, do drugs, hang out, whatever, right? Like, instead of choosing that, we choose to come to church. Why are you still bashing us and saying that we have no interest in seeking or getting closer to God because we're entertaining all those things that we are obviously rejecting because we're in church? It's like, where's the encouragement? Where's the discipleship? Where's the help? Where's the hand up? Right? So when they made me youth leader, right? Because no youth pastor in a legalist church, right? Because there's only one pastor.
There's only one pastor.
Well,
technically two.
Technically two. Technically two, right? Especially in the Spanish church. But anyway, right? So I like the whole separate youth service or things just to basically like to protect the youth and have something that we can call our own. And it's almost like when you have sucky parents, so you grow up swearing to yourself and promising yourself that you're not going to do the messed up things to your kids that your parents did to you, right? So it was like that idea, and then just having our own ownership over things. But
and the argument to that too is also, we can have, the services and the messages can be geared and tailored towards us and towards our needs or what we think are our needs, because that's a kind of a very universal thought, right? I mean, that's not, so it's kind of,
and it's not even from the youth. It's also a universal thought among pastors and leaders, right?
Right.
We need to do this for the young people because the young people need to hear sermons and messages that it's the word we hate the most, relevant to them.
Right.
Right.
So that's something, I mean, like I said, and that's not a legalistic church only. That's across the board, I guess, like super legalistic churches, fundamentalist churches, moderate churches,
liberal
churches. And it's this idea that, that youth groups are great for the youth because it gives them a quote unquote space, like Jay was saying, for them, where they can do their own worship, or they can do, and they hear messages that are, geared and tailored to them.
I mean, there are a lot of places that instead of having youth service or youth group, they have youth church. right?
They
It's
call
like
it-
they
yeah.
call it youth church, right? Okay, wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Right? I'm getting ahead of myself. So this is the thing, right? 25 plus years of youth ministry has shown me that the church, okay, ready? This is where we get a little bit controversial, right? The church fails the youth, right? Fails the youth of their church, right? By having things like a youth church or a separate youth service, especially when they have them on Sundays.
Correct.
Right. So like some churches have a youth service during regular service.
Right.
And some churches have a youth service
They might have it that night.
at night.
Right.
Right. Or on Wednesdays. Right. And
If you're a legalistic Spanish church,
Fridays. Right. And the deal is this. And I say that the church fails the youth because, okay, I'm a parent, right? My son is here.
asleep.
But he's still with me, right? Now, I can't, if my son, right, if we live in the same house, but there is no interaction between my son and he doesn't see me, right, as a husband and as a father to him, right, and a husband to my wife, then as he grows up separated from me, he's never going to have an example of how to be a father and a husband.
Right.
Right, it'll never happen. So when we have,
Or he'll only get snapshots. So it's like when when Junie was with his mom and you would have him on the weekends. He's only you have him every other weekend, right? Well, in those 2 days or I was about to say 2 days. In those 2 days, he's only getting a little bit of the picture,
right,
of his dad, being a good husband and his dad being being a man and doing fulfilling his responsibilities as a man. He's only seen it for 2 days. That's not bad, right?
But it's not the fullness.
But it's not the fullness is not the complete picture that he should be getting. So that is how it is. We feel that is how it is when it comes to youth groups. When you separate the youth and you're telling them, look, this is a youth service for you to worship God how you want to worship God, and for you to have messages that are relevant to you,
away from us,
away from what we used to call big church, right? We were the adults, away from really participating in that. We believe the kids, that the youth aren't getting a full picture of what it means to be a member
of a church,
right? To be a member of the full body.
Of the full body. So when you ask questions like, why are the youth not interested in church and leave by the time they're 18? Well, if you've never had them be a part of the church because you send them away to hang out and do their own thing and have their own church, then it's not that they're not interested in church. It's that they were never a part of the church.
Right.
Right? They were never a part of it. And because every time you held services, like corporate services as a church body, you sent them off to a little room on the side where they could see their friends, where they could hang out, where they could talk about how their school week was, and then they could, watch a video or, talk some surface talk about
like
how Jesus is our homeboy,
yeah.
right? And I say that way, and it's pretty blunt and straightforward because, well, had he not been asleep, then Junie would have shared with all of you what he shared with us, where he said that he would rather stay in the church service and hear from the pastor because he doesn't learn anything when he gets thrown to the side and he's separated into the youth group.
Right. He feels like they sugarcoat things.
And when he feels that when they sugarcoat things, then he just glazes over and it doesn't mean anything to him because it's just what he said, like basically reprocess Bible stories from when he was a kid, right? Just like over and over and sugarcoat it to when he was an adult, that he learns more in, as Joaquin said, big church. I've never called it big church before. It's dope, right? So you can't ask the question. Well, you can ask the question, but you have to look from within, because it's like you can't have a family dinner with everybody, with the adults in the kitchen or in the dining room, right? And the children in their rooms doing whatever the hell they want, right? Or watching TV. It's not a family moment or a family gathering, kingdom family in this case, if you're taking the teenagers and you're throwing them into a room, right? Because the deal is this, right? The deal is this. How will they be interested in church and stay in church if they are not a part of the church? Right? So, well, Joaquin and I, like I said, in my last, I guess, the last time that I was a youth pastor, right? It was the hardest time for me. And Joaquin knows this because he was also a youth pastor at the same place years before I was.
Correct.
And he had all the same issues that I was having, right?
Which is what shocked me when he took over, when he said he would do it. I'm like, do you not remember what I went through? Nah, I got this.
Right. But the deal is that, right? If the parents don't care, then why should the kids care? Right. And I say that on purpose because we, as the adults, as the mature believers, right, we need to disciple and pour into the younger believers.
Right.
Right. It's our obligation.
Responsibility.
Right. Our responsibility to pour into them.
Especially if you're a parent.
So, again, if the parents don't care, or if the adults don't care to pour in, and instead of pouring into the younger believers and discipling them and mentoring them, they say instead things like, because the youth are entertaining the devil, then you're doing a poor job of your responsibility to usher in the next generation of believers or disciple makers to make more disciples if you are not discipling. Right. So.
Right. And the thing is that, like I know, like in my life is for example, like my parents, when I was in high school, they made me go to, my church didn't have a youth group per se. It was more like a youth choir / group when I was there. So like if you want to be part of the youth, if you want to be part of the youth group, basically you had to go to the youth choir, right?
If you didn't know how to sing?
It doesn't matter. Everybody sang. It was a youth choir. So everybody sang. Which you can hide bad voices in the youth choir when you have 30 voices.
You just lip sync.
You can hide voices. But my parents also were involved in the church, and whenever they did any kind of anything with the church, if they were helping with the migrant ministries, guess who was going with them? I was going with them. So I was involved in the migrant ministry. So if there was a men's breakfast, right? Because they used to do like once a quarter or whatever. They'd have a men's breakfast. Guess who went with Pops to the men's breakfast? I went to the men's breakfast. It wasn't, if the church had a church activity and my family went, guess who went with them? I went with them. Like, are you picking up the pattern? I'm laying down? And so I was involved in the church, even when I didn't want to be. But guess what happened? Throughout, once I left school and I struggled a little bit with church, because as we all do as young adults, and we think, oh, the church is whack because they don't do things the way I think they should be doing it. But I still was having those conversations. I still was going to church. I was still involved in services and doing those things because that's what I grew up doing. You follow me? I grew up serving in church. I grew up going to those activities. And the problem that we're having now, part of the problem is that parents don't make their kids go, which they need to make them go. I mean, it's a good thing. And B, their parents themselves aren't involved in church.
Right. So that's the example.
So their example is, my parents don't do anything. They're making me go, but as soon as I don't have to go no more, I ain't going no more. no more. You heard? That's kind of where we're at. So now, yeah. So when these kids go to college and they don't have their parents there anymore to tell them, you know, you got to go to church with us on Sunday morning. Well, they have no love for the church because they were never a part of the church. They were never involved in anything because, like Jay said, the example was not given to them by their parents.
Or by other adults.
You hear me, parents? Well, that's just the first line of defense or offense, as it were. Right? So what's up? So
the deal is this, right? The deal is this. What, you know, Joaquin and I are big on, you know, if you see a problem, then offer a solution, right? Don't just complain about the problem. So here's our offering. Here's our offering, right? And again, this is 40 plus years of youth ministry speaking here, right? It's not just, let me not lie. I was going to say it's not just two over-opinionated Puerto Ricans.
No, it is.
Because it is. It'll always be two over-opinionated Puerto Ricans.
And that almost cancels out the 40 years of ministry because we're just so opinionated about everything. So
but as you said, almost.
Right.
Almost. Right? Not quite. Almost. So this is our suggestion, right? And without a lie, when you see legacy flourishing, it'll partly be because of this, because this is what will be happening at Legacy.
Go ahead.
So he's
leave him alone.
He's hugging the couch.
It's all right.
Right. So this is what we're going to be doing at Legacy, and if right, and I set this challenge. If we have anybody listening to us that's in youth leadership, right, I'll set this challenge to you. Right? If this is a question, because we see this question a lot when we get like the emails, oh, millennials are leaving the church by the droves. Why?
Right.
You know, try this out, right? Instead of having a separate youth service, right, keep the youth in the church. Keep the children, you know, doing their Bible studies and learning, you know, giving them the foundation, building the foundation of Bible and of Jesus in them, right? But young people, and when we say young people, we mean like
middle
students,
school,
middle school, high school,
on up.
right? Keep them in the service. Keep them in the sanctuary. Keep them in the sanctuary. Not only keep them in the sanctuary, right, for Sunday service, instead of separating them, or instead of doing a Sunday night, cancel your Sunday nights. Keep them in the service on Sunday, right? Let them interact and be a part of the church body.
Right. Include them in the service.
Right? That was the next step, right? Let them hear and learn from the same pastor that preaches and teaches you guys, right? Because the one great thing that I loved growing up, like without a lie, is like my pastor preached, right? As legalistic as the church was, like the pastor still like brought it. Right? My pastor preached, but I was able to, on the ride home and sometimes at home, right, talk to my mom about the sermon. Right. And ask her questions. Like I didn't really understand this. Right. Like I didn't get like, what did he mean by this? Right. And my mom would, you know, basically expound on the sermon. Right. And I feel that that's every parent's job. Right. Especially if you're a believing parent. Right. If you're a believer, then, you know, your first disciples are your children. Well, the people that you should be discipling first are your children. Right. So, right. And have them in the service. Let them learn or hear from the same pastor that you're hearing from, right?
Yeah.
As Joaquin said, include them in the service. So give examples, of that inclusion.
So, simple stuff like if you have ushers, put them in to be ushers with one of the adult ushers, Have them help collect the offering plate. Have them help sit people down. Have them help greeting people at the door. Have them help pass anything out that you need to pass out. Just those things. Have them if they've got talent. If they're good at playing an instrument, have them be part of the worship team. Have them sing in the choir if you have a choir with all the adults. Bring them together. Have them help in the children's ministry. Like if you have, like I know smaller churches will have rotation for like the children's nursery. Put the youth in there with an adult in that rotation. It's all kinds of different things. I know some churches, they do like visitations where they go out on a Tuesday night or whatever to go visit, church members that are sick, or they go visit people that visited. That's a very, very Southern Baptist thing to do. Take them with you. Have them go visit the sick. And have them, pray over the sick with an adult, whether it's their parent or another member of the church. Like those are the things that we need to be including our young people, our teenagers, in, because that's how they learn to serve. That's how I learned to serve. By going to migrant ministries with my parents and teaching English classes, and helping sort clothes out, and handing food out. That's how I learned to serve. I didn't learn to serve because I have great parents and they were like, well, you need to know this. I learned to serve because they put me in positions, right? They put me in position where I had to serve, where I had to learn how to serve. So that's how we help. That's how we help our youth get connected to the church. And to piggyback a little bit on what Jay said, listen, a long time ago when I shifted my thoughts on this, and when I would bring this up and people would be like, no, that's not right. The youth need their own stuff. I'm like, look, one of the arguments people always made to me was, oh, well, the sermons in big church, they're geared towards adults, and the youth don't have a need for that. They don't have it under, if the pastor, this is always a big one. If the pastor preaches on marriage, the youth aren't married. They're not getting married anytime soon. Why do they need to hear about that? And my response is always, well, no, like that should be exactly what they're hearing. So does that mean me as a single person, if the pastor preaching on marriage, I don't have to be there? I can just get up and leave? I'm not married. This doesn't help me. No, you would say, no, you need to listen, right? Because you'll learn something so that when you get put in a position, or if you find that person and you decide to get married and you get married, well, you've had learned all this stuff about marriage from the pastor as a young adult. So just imagine the youth getting to hear this. And they hear about what a good relationship should be. And they hear, what a godly relationship should look like. And they're challenged by it, right? Kids need to be challenged. And we don't challenge them when we sugarcoat stuff. We don't challenge them when we, when we dumb things down for them. No, they should be challenged. Wow, that's what a marriage should look like. And I think of it this way too. And then as parents, your kids are listening to the same thing. You should be challenged to model what a good marriage looks like. That's right. For your kids.
That's right.
Right. You should model what serving the Lord is for your kids. You should model these things, right? And the kids should learn this. And then, that'll translate. Those things translate. Oh, if this is what a good marriage looks like, then maybe I can use some of this stuff to have a good boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. Right? That honors God instead of honoring, entertaining the devil, right? And honoring the flesh as it is, or as it were.
Yeah. And not only that, right? Not only that, but then you also help them with an attitude of servitude, right? An attitude of serving in the church, right? Because, if a child grows up, right, seeing, right, if a son grows up seeing his father loving and respecting his mom, then when he is a husband, then he will like basically do what he saw, what was modeled for him, right? And that's the one thing that people say, a gentleman, you know a gentleman because, well, what is it? I'm trying to say, right? Whatever. Like he'll copy his dad basically, and how he treats his wife or his girlfriend, right? So the deal is, you include them in the service. You have them, as Joaquin said, serving all these different parts of the church. Then there's a sense of pride and ownership, right, within the church building and within the church things, and they learn how to serve rather than just being consumer Christians, right? They're a part of the structure of the church. They're a part of the body, right? And that will make one want to stay.
And they'll be mentored by the older, the older Christians that have been in the game for 40, 50 years, those 60, 70-year-old grandparents that people always like, oh, they're the ones that, they're always so against stuff. Well, they're against stuff because they don't know stuff.
Right.
And how they ever going to know stuff if they're not involved with the young generation? It's not that old people are against the new things, but they just don't understand the new things because no one's explaining it to them. Right. They're not seeing any fruit of it.
And then this is the thing, right? This is the thing, right? How can a person be excited for ministry if they've never seen or been a part of ministry, right? And another thing is, right, we keep these kids separated. We keep them on their own, right? And they're not discipled by the pastor of the house, but they'll get on iTunes or Google or Spotify or whatever, and they'll listen to podcasts or sermons of other churches, of other preachers, right? And they'll have more of a longing to be somewhere else, anywhere else than the place that cast them aside and separated them in the first place, right? So how can they gain? And the biggest thing for me of my church in New York is that I had a relationship with my pastor, like a one-on-one relationship. It wasn't like, oh yeah, that's my pastor. Hey, Mr. Pastor Man, right? Like, if I needed help with anything that I didn't want to talk to my mom about or my grandmother about, like, I can go to my pastor's house and I can sit with him and ask him questions or get advice from him or get prayer from him, right? And but I was there, right? I was there. I knew who he was. I listened to him weekly. Like, that's because, like, I made the choice of staying in the sanctuary from 12 years old because I didn't want to be with the youth because there was just too many stupid people there. But anyway, right? So if your child, right, your teenager, instead of being in the sanctuary and being taught and discipled by the pastor, as the entire church is taught and discipled by the pastor, right? He's instead, like, he's 17 and the youth pastor is like 22. There's not much difference in age and there's not much difference in experience, right? And what's going on and the thought process and whatever, right? Because a 22-year-old doesn't really know much, right? Hasn't really been learned or been taught much.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not that you can't learn from it. I mean, we're not saying that, just because that difference doesn't mean that they can't learn from them. But the idea is wisdom, right? Wisdom comes from experience.
And experience comes with age.
And experience comes with age. And yeah, there are those guys that are 22 that me and Jay could listen to and be like, whoa, God just really taught us something. So that's not the point. But the point is that it all comes back to that separation. I mean, take the pastor out of the equation. There's a lot of people that are older in the church body that are just dying to be able to mentor someone, dying to be able to pour into somebody. It doesn't have to be the pastor. It could be brother Joe, who's been a faithful believer for 40 years, and brother Joe, is a carpenter. Right? That's funny. It's a brother Joe and a carpenter.
It could be like our,
Sister Margaret,
our homegirl, Christina, right? She's been on the show.
Yes.
Right? Who has a huge heart for mission work and has been a missionary. Right? In Africa and South America, right? There could be like a girl who maybe has a curiosity for missions, but she's stuck in a room with other 13-year-olds that have never gone on a mission trip.
Right.
Although she's seen videos on YouTube, she's heard things or whatever.
And right? They've talked about it in youth group.
Or they talk about, missionaries and whatever, and they teach about Paul and Paul's mission trips, and she wants more information, or she wants to like connect with somebody that can tell her that. But being away from Christina because she's in a room, like she doesn't have that opportunity to connect with her and Christina mentor and disciple her and like fill her head and her heart and pray for her about, her passion for missions, right? And maybe take her on like short-term mission trips, like in the city to feed the homeless or whatever, right? You go and you learn, the disciples walk with Jesus for 3 years and they learned from him for 3 years personally, right? It wasn't like, hey, there's Jesus. He's going to go teach. Oh, you're going to go talk to that crowd? Okay, we're going to go to this house over here and, we'll be back when you're done, right? It's ridiculous. Now, we are not saying that to kill all youth programs, right? We're not saying that at all. What we are saying is that during service, keep the young people, the youth, the students, middle school and high school, keep them in the sanctuary, in the church body, right? Working and interacting with the church body. But at the same time, a lot of churches now do the group thing, right? Do the home group thing.
The home groups.
So
have the youth home group.
Have a youth home group, right? Have a youth home group. And they can, and that's where you have the youth leader or the youth or the mentor or the youth pastor, whatever you want to call them. Doesn't matter, right? And there they can do their hangout. There they can dig into, right,
more, maybe more topical things,
right,
or
more topical surface things, or even, discuss what the pastor preached about on Sunday, right? And the youth pastor, the youth leader or whatever, or the group leader can bring it as we stated in the beginning, in a fashion or in a way that speaks more to them, right? Because the pastor or the teacher is going to teach. Okay, he's going to teach, and then that youth leader and these groups over pizza and video games, can discuss what the pastor taught, right? But more topically and more personally, right, according to like their age group,
right?
And,
they can ask the
and
questions,
make
like,
it relevant to them.
The pastor said this. How can that apply in your life?
Like, how can you high school this?
And break it down. Yeah, it's exactly right. So now we say all this, and you're probably wondering, well, you guys haven't used any scripture, right?
True that.
So we want to use some scripture. We want to kind of point to what we think is an example,
a model in the Bible that shows that it works.
What we feel is a model, yes. So, so we're in 2 Timothy. 2 Timothy.
2 Timothy chapter 1.
I'm having English problems today. And so, as we know, 1st, 2 Timothy, Paul is writing to a kid named Timothy. And we also know that, church history, I guess we could say, tells us that, Timothy was a young man. We're thinking, some people say 16, 17, maybe as old as maybe like 19, 20 years old.
So he qualifies to be in that age group.
In that age group, he's a young man. And so Paul, 2 Timothy 1, writes writes him this letter. And I'm going to read verse 3 and 4, which is the first part of it. And this is what Paul says. He goes, Timothy, I thank God for you, the God I serve with a clear conscience, just as my ancestors did. Night and day, I constantly remember you in my prayers. Number 1, I long to see you again, for I remember your tears as we parted, and I will be filled with joy when we are together again. Verse 5, I remember your genuine faith, for you share the faith that first filled your grandmother Lois and your mother Eunice. And there's the home influence. And I know that same faith continues strong in you. And that's Timothy owning his faith. This is why I remind you to fan into flames the spiritual gift God gave you when I laid my hands on you. For God is not giving us a spirit of fear and timidity, but of power, love, and self-esteem. And so then he continues, so never be ashamed to tell others about our Lord. Don't be ashamed of me, even though I'm in prison, for God saved us. And he kind of keeps going on and just bringing encouragement to Timothy. And then in verse 13, he says this. He goes, hold on to the pattern of wholesome teaching you learned from me, a pattern shaped by the faith and love that you have in Christ Jesus. Through the power of the Holy Spirit who lives within us, carefully guard the precious truth that has been entrusted to you.
So what we see there, we see the mentor-disciple relationship that Joaquin and I have been talking about, right? Paul was Timothy's mentor, right? Timothy learned from Paul.
Well, and he first learned from...
And wait, I was going to get to that, right?
Come on, man.
Right? Timothy learned from Paul.
So slow.
Right? But it wasn't just like Paul was the outsider, right? Paul was the outsider. Paul was that guy in the church that like Timothy connected with, okay? But Timothy was also, as I said, was also receiving from like the legacy of his grandmother, Lois, and his mother, Eunice, right? So it was also within the home, like I said, our children are our first priority in discipleship, right? It's like me and my son here, right? It's my job, right? As the pastor teaches, but for me to disciple my son as we go out doing the Great Commission and going out into all the world, right? So the legacy of discipleship comes from the pastor to me, from me to my son, from my son to his friends and his children when that time comes, right? So the deal is that we find it in the example of Jesus and his disciples. We find it in the example of Barnabas to Paul and Paul to Timothy, right? Oh, I pulled out Barnabas, right? And Paul to Timothy. And the great thing about Timothy is that Timothy was a young pastor. Right. He was a young pastor. So then Timothy also had the responsibility of also discipling, right? But he had his mentor. He had somebody that was over him and helping him. He wasn't separated, trying to figure it out on his own or trying to figure it out by people his same age and going through the same things and the same doubts and the same fears, right? Now, I'm pretty sure, and I hope with God, I pray and I hope that that we as adults can think back to a few people that have been like that mentor or that disciple, right? That guy that has discipled and helped us. For me, and he still does every now and then, is Ray Torres, right? I mean, you met him when we went to New York, right? Since I was no lie, like since I was a kid, Ray was my go-to guy, right? I would even like jump on my bike and ride it over to his house, and we I'd have my questions and I have my doubts and I have my anger, right? And he would open up the Bible and like teach me and pray for me and help me out, right? And that did a lot better for me than me going to the knucklehead that was also 12 years old
and angry
right? And you less than I did, right? So, yeah, we're gonna wrap this up with this, right? We're gonna wrap this up with this. If you have to ask the question why the youth are not interested in church and they leave, then you have to ask the question, why do the youth in your church, okay, why are you separating the youth from church and then asking why they're not interested in church, right?
Right.
And why are they leaving? Well, why are they not leaving if they were never part of something anyway? Like, why stay in a relationship that you don't have? You're just like hovering, right? So, man, I challenge anybody that listens to this podcast and that is in youth ministry or in youth leadership to try this model at least for 6 months. 6 months. Stop having separate youth gatherings. Bring the youth into the sanctuary. Let them serve in the sanctuary. Let them listen to the same pastor and the same leader of the entire church body.
Right. And let them serve in all the other aspects of the church that they serve. So men's breakfast.
Have the
boys,
teenage boys there.
Teenage boys there. Women's breakfast. I don't know.
Yeah.
Have the girls there. Clean up at the church. Everybody there. Like, include them in everything that the church does. Period. That's it.
Yeah, that's it. Raise them as a part of the body.
Yes.
So that when they are 18, they don't leave, but they want to continue building up the body, and then, be the mentor that their mentors were to them, right? To the middle school kids that come up,
right,
or the other people that come up, and you see that. I mean, we are a family in Christ, right? It's one kingdom, one God, one kingdom. We're a family in Christ. So let's bring the family back to the family.
Right. Yeah, that's it. Listen, my last thought will be this. Listen, I know a youth pastor who did this with his youth group, where he met with the older kids, right, like the juniors and seniors, and he poured into them. But then he had the juniors and seniors meet with the sophomores and freshmen, and they had the sophomores and freshmen meet with, the 7th and 8th graders, and that youth group exploded. And you had kids that were 7th grade, 9th graders, inviting people to church, telling people about Jesus. That's great. But awesome. Now, imagine if you extrapolate that church-wide. So kids can mentor kids, but they need to have good mentors over them. So if the whole church is mentoring each other and it all brings down and all trickles down, you have more kids stay than leave when they turn 18, because they have grown up in the faith, and they've seen the examples of people that have grown up in the faith and people in the faith through the good and the bad.
And they feel that they're a part of it all.
That. That's it. So that's it. That's all we got for you guys today. As always, thank you for joining us. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for lasting this long with us. As always, we're so long-winded. It's ridiculous.
But this was something that needed.
Yeah,
a lot of coverage.
But as always, thank you. Thank you for joining us. My name is Joaquin.
I'm still long-winded, Jay.
And this was the Overflow Podcast. Peace. Till next week.
Thanks for listening. Remember to head on over to thisisoutcry.com for more content. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, or Stitcher.